We're here on an early April morning next to the Yellow Breeches Creek to talk about one of our earliest blooming invasive plants in Pennsylvania, lesser celandine. As you can see, lesser celandine has a habit of forming very dense mats of vegetation and quickly chokes out all of our native spring ephemeral wildflowers. The best time to identify lesser celandine is in the spring when it's in flower. This species produces these bright yellow flowers with 7 to 12 petals, 3 green sepals underneath. It's borne on these very long flower stalks that have deep grooves down into them. Looking at the leaves of lesser celandine, this species tends to have a heart-shaped or kidney-shaped leaf with a wavy margin and forms very dense prostrate mats along the ground. Lesser celandine has been spreading through the Commonwealth along our rivers and streams primarily. Lesser celandine doesn't really reproduce by seed. Instead, it produces these bulblets at the base of every plant. These little fragments can break off and form new plants, and that's mainly how these dense mats are formed near rivers and stream banks. Anytime that there's flooding, soil disturbance, or even mowing of lawns and roadsides, these bulblets can spread into adjacent areas, and thus the mats move from the riverside into our lawns and parks. Once lesser celandine is established, it can be very difficult to control or remove from a site. It can be mechanically dug and removed, however, extreme care should be taken to make sure that all the roots and bulblets are dug out at the same time as the majority of the plant. Herbicides can be used. An aquatic labeled glyphosate product can be applied to these plants early in the spring before other native species emerge, and you can achieve some control. However, when it's in dense mats, it may require multiple years of treatment to completely eradicate from the site. There are native buttercup species in Pennsylvania, but probably the native plant that most resembles lesser celandine is marsh marigold. It also has a yellow flower, but typically only has 5 petals and much larger leaves. Marsh marigolds tend to grow in wetlands in forested habitats, and they bloom about a month after lesser celandine. So whereas our lesser celandine may bloom in April, the marsh marigold typically is in mid to late May. Early detection of lesser celandine is key to control infestations. It's not too much of a task to remove a handful of plants. However, if you live near rivers or stream banks, you want to constantly be aware of this plant and looking out for it in the spring so that it can be treated and removed before it forms very dense mats.